Joining me now on the news to discuss this is the chairman, Plateau Peace Practitioners Network, Pakim Chochi. Pakim, welcome to the news. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Thank you so much. So in terms of what we're seeing when it comes to the security or lack thereof in this situation, what are some of the key vulnerabilities that you think may have contributed to the initial attacks in Plateau State? And how can some of these vulnerabilities be addressed to prevent further incidents as it is right now?
Okay, the first vulnerability is the normalization of the killings in the Plateau. From September 7 to recurring crises, ethno-religious, to the crisis within the hinterland and what we call the attacks on communities. The normalization of it by different stakeholders, the security, even the media themselves, where we've decided to call it by a name that is most convenient. It's easier to really have a culprit who stole a car prosecuted than somebody who kills a person, not just a person, groups of people, community, wipes a community up. So that vulnerability is there. The other vulnerability is that the topography of those communities is quite on the rocky side. And because of that too, several times the security have given excuses that they are not able to access some of those communities handy. We've also had a lot of conversations too with some security where even informally now, where even the chain of commands, wherever there is a crisis or an early warning, not just an early warning, when there's an alarm that has been raised of an attack already happening, before whoever gives a permission from one level to the other, before then you get to see attacks happen within 4 hours, and there is no government presence to nip the attack in the bud. Beyond also that too, community people on their own, the way we see these issues determine how we respond to it. Community people have seen it in different lights. Some have seen it as a farmer-herder conflict. Some have seen it as act of terrorism. Some have also seen it as conflict over natural resources. And because also practitioners in the field who are members of the Plateau Peace Practitioners Network and other colleagues, both local and international, depending on the narrative that have been given over the years, that has also impacted on what approach they are able to give. When you notice most of our interventions in Plateau State are barely within the city centers, while in the local communities where the heat of the conflict is there, we normally just conclude that, oh, this should take a security approach. But again, the security people are not always very accessible because there are instances where attacks have happened in communities. We have raised concern, we have written to Operation Safe Haven to even assess them so that we're able to see how do we come in as civil society practitioners. That has been a difficult moment to really see, okay, how do you cooperate with the people? Even when you complain that, okay, there are no early warning systems or early warning information on ground. But again, if you work with the civil society, we've always said that work with us, we're going to see how we can, see where are the gaps and see how do we really close them. So all these are part of the vulnerabilities. And of course,
well, please, before you go on, let me ask, because you talk about a lack of an early warning system. We also talk about a lack of adequate timing and response from the security agencies when attacks are still on. So we know right now that we're hearing that these bandits or these individuals, whatever name you want to use to describe them, have actually issued a threat against the Pushit community as well, and which is about an impending attack. So this is not about early warning system. This is even earlier than that. This is a threat, a credible threat, apparently, to another community in Plateau State. So a lot of people are now asking, what about the intelligence gathering methods, the sources that should be prioritized in order to enhance situational awareness and even early detection of potential attacks? And I think that's where you're going now. But I also want to talk, I also want you to talk about the credibility of this particular threat that has been made against yet another community in Plateau State.
In fact, we can say that the information that we've gathered, as in the threat, is 100%. Let me put it this way, because most of the times when threats are issued, be rest assured that they are 99% executed. And because they are 99% executed, any trade that comes on board, you definitely know that there's going to be an execution. I know this takes us to the conversation around, we've had Operation Safe Haven for roughly 12 years in the state. We've had the police. There was even a time that the president even ordered a standing order that there should be relocation of Operation Safe Haven to Mangu. But again, that did not even stop the killings in Mangu. So the question we want to ask, the fundamental question is, would the marching order of the president or boots on the ground really reflect the peace in the communities? Because by the day, even with the presence of the military, high military expenditure in those communities, yet we have not seen the peace that is needed. And that is why, even at most instances, communities have asked this question.
Hello? Hakim, are you with me? We seem to have experienced a technical glitch there with our guest. Let me try once again. Hakim, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, fantastic. So you were talking about how communities feel when it comes to a lack of an early warning system and the threat that has come against the Push It community. Just pick up from there, please.
So most of the times communities, even when they have this kind of information, because they know that nothing is definitely going to be done, then they definitely would just say we are at the mercy, and people just start running from those communities. They will definitely not go, and because even when there's a security outpost, there are instances, whether in Bassa, in Barkinladi, in even Pushi, in Mangu itself, there are instances where attacks have happened very close to checkpoints, and they'll tell you that, oh, we've not received a military, we've not received the last command. So the question is, even a statement of Mr. President, is it just merely a political statement to show that there's a commander-in-chief, or really it is going to translate this time around to peace of the community? We must also remember that beyond the militarization of this approach, how do we as even civil society practitioners, because these killings also temper on our integrity as civil society practitioners, on what exactly we're expected to do, what key issues are we supposed to really address now that people are killed in numbers? So it's a moment of reflection for all stakeholders. So we are not just putting it on Mr. President. We're not only putting it on the Chief of Army Staff, Defense Staff, or all other stakeholders. We're also putting it upon ourselves.
Okay, so you've talked a bit about the collaboration with the local communities and security agencies, and explain to us how communities feel, because they have been giving intelligence reports, and you're talking about some of the locations of some of these attacks. Is there a trust deficit? Is there a situation now where communities don't even bother to give this information because of the information given previously and how it was handled, or a lack of adequate response? You've talked about not all of this being on the presidency, but do you think the people themselves, those who have been displaced, those who are mourning the loss of their loved ones, do they believe that Nigeria is going to come to their aid and make sure that there's peace in their communities?
Definitely no, because you get to see, like we've said, they'll share some of this intelligence on social media. You see them on different WhatsApp platforms. That is where you get to see some of these things. And nothing definitely is going to be done. So at times they just say, okay, let us just put it on the WhatsApp, on the all WhatsApp platforms, so that people are able to know that we have shared it, and whatever that happens at the end of the day. So when you talk about trust deficit, there is an outright trust deficit between the security, and of course we've already highlighted some of these things, because there are also allegations that there are instances where the security personnel have also been pointed out, and we have said it at some instances to the security personnel where they have tried to give us some openings. We said there are times that your people have been fingered to have done these attacks. Let me remind you that this conflict, these attacks have been in that part of the state for quite a while, right from 2001 crisis. Then it metamorphosed from the Just City to those areas. So be that as it may, the conflict, the actors have also kept on changing. And now there is a growth of militias within those communities that are now being used to execute agendas that we do not really are clear of. But again, if really the government is able to establish itself as a government with a commander-in-chief, I think there's no militia that is strong enough than the Nigerian army, and other security personnel.
All right, before I let you go, I believe you would have visited some of the communities and also met with those who have been displaced and lost their loved ones. What do they want from Nigeria? What do they want from Nigerians? We've seen that the vice president went there to represent the president. The inspector general of police has asked that an IAG also be deployed there, IAG Zone 4 be deployed there, tactical teams, equipment as well. Beyond all of that and the condolences that have come in, what do the people of Plateau State want from Nigeria and Nigerians?
One, the people want to go back to their ancestral homes because not going back to their ancestral homes affects their economy, affects their dignity as people. Because in Plateau State, as we speak, there are no statutory IDP camps, despite the prolonged conflicts. So you get to see people are living in shanty places where even they are violated sexually and all whatnot. Two, they want to see boots on the ground translating to peace of the community because they are tired of just seeing military on ground without peace in their communities. So these two basic things, and funny enough, there have not been the deployment of emergency, what do you call it, the support from NEMA or any agency by today that we speak. We've not yet seen that. So the people are finding it difficult to cope, despite the wide. In fact, there's an emergency, a humanitarian emergency in those communities. So they want to see at least some palliatives come on board, very, very handy. And we wonder how long will it really take to really have those palliatives reach to the people.
All right. Kashim Shettima, we're going to continue following up on this story. Again, our condolences as well to those who have lost loved ones, and we'll continue to highlight and put a spotlight on this situation until adequate action is taken. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.